Okay, so it is 26th of April 2022. It is 8 p.m. UK time, and it is exactly 1 week until the 45-day live stream show starts. And one of the two people who's kicking off that show is Mark Lancaster as part of Afternoon Delights with Ouija. So my special guest today on All Back to Mine is Mark Lancaster. How you doing, Mark?
Hi, very, very well, thank you. How are you, Criztoz?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. I think as I was saying to you before, it's starting to get a little bit busy now in the run up to
Yeah,
45 day. And obviously we had Record Store Day last weekend, which we can talk about as well when in a few minutes. When we get to it for you as well.
yeah,
But yeah, otherwise really good. And so you're okay today.
yeah, not too bad. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I've got this sort of a bit of a coldy type thing coming on, which I'll keep testing myself. I'm a bit concerned, but if it comes, it comes. Can't do anything about it.
I think there seems to still be quite a lot of sort of colds and little things going
Yeah,
around at the moment. But
yeah.
as long as it's
One of my mates has just had COVID quite badly, and he's had it. Well, not he's not been gravely ill or anything, but he's had it like for 13 days, and he
right, oh god,
he only went negative today after like 2 weeks. So yeah, it's
yeah.
hanging around still.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because supposedly here in the UK we're just living with COVID, and yet
Yeah,
people are still getting it, and people who haven't had it before. But we'll move on. I'm sure people
yeah, okay, yeah. Really done
I'm
that.
sure people have listened to COVID as much as they need to these
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
But yes, so All Back to Mine is obviously a show. If I had come to your house, and in fact, I have actually been to your house.
You have.
Last year when we met up in Southend, and you took me to a few record shops, and we can talk about those later. And then we went and met up with Daryl Easley and then Mark Funk 45. So
That's
I
right.
have been to your house. We just didn't do the show when I was at
That's
your
right.
house.
No, we sort of popped in
Yeah,
briefly a couple of
yeah.
times and then left again, didn't we? So,
Exactly.
we did.
So yeah, when we get there, you're going to show me or play me 7 sevens from your collection. But before we start that,
Yeah.
let's say hello to Marky Newby, Fat Wax 45. Looks
Hi,
like he's watching us
hello,
on
Mark. How you
Facebook.
doing, mate?
Hopefully he'll come onto Twitch and see us. But yeah, let's start like I do with most of my guests, the sort of origins. So who were the first sort of people who inspired you? Was it family members? Was it friends? Was it siblings?
Um, there was always music in my house as a growing up.
Yeah,
Basically from my dad, because my dad's a jazz musician and a
yeah,
big jazz fan, so there was always music around. Um, and when I was very small, that's what I heard. There was very little sort of pop music around, really. A little bit. There was the things like the Carpenters and Don McLean. I seem to remember, the American Pie album. And what else was there? Jose Feliciano was around a bit as well. That kind of stuff. But yeah, so there was that kind of influence was quite heavy, and that's what. Although I pushed against the whole jazz thing when I was very small, until I was about 15, I suppose, 15 or 16,
yeah,
music was always around. So, having such a big part of my dad's life, I thought it was inevitable, really, that even though at the time I didn't really like the jazzy stuff, I found my own way, and music has always been a big part of my life too. Apart from that, yeah, my mum's, she likes music, but she's not the type of person who'd actually put a record on or put a CD on or turn the
right,
radio on. She's
okay,
just not. No, she likes her music, but she's not someone who seeks it out. And my sisters are very much the same. She likes music, but puts the radio on and she's happy with that. Never really bought records or anything. So
fair
yeah.
enough.
And then outside of that, my nan always liked music, and that's where I got my first records from. She gave me some records when I was about 7 or 8, I suppose. But yeah, that's it really. And then usual thing that when you go to, particularly senior school, that's when it starts really kicking in, doesn't it? Because you start finding stuff for yourself, and then some mates like music, and you start taking more of an interest in the whole
Yeah,
topic.
I think it probably, yeah, probably sort of early teens and into sort of senior school is probably about the right time, I
Yeah,
think, for a lot of people. And that's about, like you say, that's the time when people are firstly finding themselves, but also finding themselves musically as well.
right.
Let's just go back to your nan a minute, because
Yeah,
the reason I say that is obviously JS, Mr. Lob's son,
Yeah.
has just done a mix for 45 Day, and a lot of the records are records that his grandmother gave to him. She's passed away now, but a lot of the records were ones that she's given to him and he's playing out. So can you remember what sort of records your nan gave you back then?
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a strange story, really. My granddad used to work at the Cafe Royal.
Okay.
In London, in what road? Regent Street. Is it Regent Street? Can't remember now. I think it's anyway. And he had access to. I mean, they obviously had music going on, events, and there were records around. And I think he brought quite a few records home from there. And they were not particularly records that my nan would like or wanted, really. There are lots of different. And there was a few. I can remember having some Adam Faith and some Charlie Drake records and all kinds of bizarre things.
Right. Okay.
The Kingston Trio and all kinds of weird stuff. It was not particularly my taste, but I was just given a bunch of records, and me and my sister really didn't really take a lot of interest, but we got given a dance set. It wasn't a dance set. It's like a cheap version. It was a portable record player.
Right. Okay.
Like you could stack the records up 5 or 6 at a time.
With with that little holder thing, and then it dropped.
Like a dance set is today, but it wasn't as a good a quality as that. But it was all right. It's when you're that age, you don't care, do you? I remember getting a whole lot of records from that, and there was some Elvis Presley. Wear My Ring Around Your Neck, I remember having, and It's Now or Never, and Surrender, and there was another one. There's another one as well. I can't remember. A couple of them have gone missing, but I've still got a couple of them. You Lonesome Tonight. That's it. That's the other one. And things like that were given to us. And when you're that age, you get given something, and it's that sort of like, I've got a record. So it's like very much like you find with JS. He's playing all these weird and wonderful things. He's mixed. Yeah. I've just heard, and it's got some fantastic sort of mixtures of music on there. Sort of like from hip hop to rock, and then he's got King of the Swingers and all, and that's the kind of thing you listen to, because you just listen to everything, because you haven't got any discerning taste at that age, really. You're just
it's just things that you like. Yes, it's the same with Zizi. It's just she hears stuff and she's like, I like that song, or can I play that in my next mix or something like that. It's it's amazing that how the brain works in terms of what music you like, and I guess it's only later that you start thinking, okay, well, I'm really into hip hop, or I'm really into rock, or I'm really into indie, or I'm really into whatever it is.
But I think it's quite freeing when you're that age, because you don't know what's cool and what's not cool, and you've got no concept of it. And I find now that I'm nearly 57 now, that I've got exactly the same feeling as I had when I was 8. That I don't care what it is. I mean, I had a delivery today of 3 5-star records I got in my delivery.
I used to love 5-star.
Yeah, they're a good little pop band. I don't care, doesn't. But 10 years, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, I'd have never bought a 5-star record, because it was like, how dare this? But now I've got to an age where I don't care anymore. And I think when you're that age, you don't care because you don't know. You just play with it.
Yeah. Whereas we know, but we don't care.
That's right.
But then again,
I don't care. Yeah. And I think even doing the Twitch thing has really freed me up as well.
Yeah,
when I'm doing sets, I always like to drop a cheesy record in, but now you just do a whole set of stuff, and I don't care, because it doesn't matter. And then, but what's lovely is you play one of these old cheesy records, and people go, "Oh, that's a great record."
I know. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny. It's and that's one of the beauties of Twitch, because you're not playing for like a dance floor, you're not playing for a venue, or you're not playing for a promoter. You can just play whatever you want, and people generally be like, "Oh, I haven't heard this for a while," or like I played what was it? I played on one. It was the Flintstones theme by the B-52s, which is pretty cheesy.
It is.
But it's like one of those things where you're like, actually, it's a bit cheesy, but people are like, yeah, we love the B-52s. We were talking about them on when DJ Babs was on the other day. Just going to say hello to Galen Hardy and Lady Melza.
Lady Melza, hello, Galen Hardy. I can't see it in the chat I've got on the screen, but I can see it on my phone.
So Galen Hardy saying DJ Mike James, friends with 5-star, and has a 5-star channel point redemption. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I can see the pictures coming on the phone. So, it's when I did that thing on Sunday where I did a rock thing, and I was quite not nervous about it, but thought, oh, what's it going to go like, you know? And then you find everyone's going, oh, I like this, I like, you know, all these hip hop heads and all these people in the breaks, they also like Rainbow, you know, who knew? And they also like John Cougar Mellencamp.
It's but I think it's I don't think it's just us as 45s DJs, but I think because we are 45s DJs and we tend to play quite eclectic sets anyway, or you know, got eclectic collections, I think we appreciate it a lot more. I mean, I'm being very general here, and it may be that, you know, drum and bass DJs love that sort of stuff as well, but who knows? Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll come back to a few bits out of that, but let's get on with some music.
Okay.
Let's hear your first 45 or your first 7 that you've chosen, and if you tell us firstly, you know, what it is, and then why you've chosen it, and then we'll have a little listen.
Right. So the first tune is Spanish Harlem by Aretha Franklin.
Nice.
And it was one of the records that I was given when I was 7 or 8. That
amazing.
Was in that bunch of records I got given by my man. There was a couple other things, and I didn't know which one to choose. I had also had Black Skin, Blue Eyed Boys by the Equals. There's another one in that pile.
Okay.
But this one it stayed with me all that time, and I still love it. And it's one of my favourite Aretha records. So yeah.
Brilliant. Let's hear it then. That's a great tune. That's a great tune. And Lady Melza says it's an amazing tune as well. That's a great start.
So it's you know, it's one of those records, I think, that Aretha, you don't usually, it's not one of those records of hers that you don't actually necessarily think of first when you think of Aretha, because she's made, I mean, you know, Respect and all those other sort of real funky and lovely soul ones, but that one is, I just think it's a tremendous record, and I've always loved it, and I think I love it more now than I ever have done. Really, it's just and it's like,
and that is, let's just be clear, that's an original one that your grandmother gave you.
I've had that record 47 years or something. You know,
that's older than me.
Since I was 8. So
it's only just slightly older than me, but yeah.
This record is older than you, Criztoz.
I know. Well, I've got records that are older. I've got records that are older than you and older than Scotty Boy is. Yeah, so you know, it's all fine. Fat Wax is saying that soft rock, AOR, yacht rock, call it what you want, is big in their house as well. So I think he was saying that
it's not. It's one of those things that I've come back to. You know, when I was at school, when I first got into music, that's the kind of thing I was listening to. I was listening to Springsteen and, you know, a bit of Dylan and Cheap Trick and all that kind of rocky stuff was what I listened to. I used to listen to a radio show that was on Capital Radio in London called Your Mother Wouldn't Like It, Nicky Horn.
Okay.
You know, and Nicky Horn's still going, he's still doing shows now. On Boom is on now. And used to listen under the bed sheets when I wasn't really meant to be listening when I was about 13, you know. I meant to be going to sleep at 9 o'clock. I had the radio on, and I still listen to the radio at night, going to sleep now. You know, 45 years on or whatever, I still do it.
Amazing,
but it's, but that was the kind of thing I was listening to really a lot. That when I first started getting into music seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just lovely to come back to it now and really So most of those records I played on Sunday, I've had for 40 years. You know, it's like pretty quite bizarre.
Yeah. Hi to Nick Goodlife as well, and
Well,
also to Groove the Most in the house. But it's also part of digging, isn't it? You know, because we're again, I'm not disrespecting digital DJs in any way, shape, or
no,
form, because they do their own sort of digging online or whatever. But obviously, because we go to record shops, we go to charity shops, we go to boot fairs and all of this stuff, you know, you do just pick stuff up and you're suddenly
yeah,
like, okay, I remember that. Well, that was a hit, you know. I might not have liked it then, but I might like it now. Or, you know, I'll buy stuff that I think that Zia might like, or, you know, she might play. But there is that element of record collecting that brings music back. And because a lot of these are quite old, you know, they're not
yeah.
modern hits or by,
And
you know, by
you find them cheap as well. Lots of these things.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
They were the pop records of my youth.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not really famous or particularly good, you know, in the sense of a great record. You know, I mean, I think they're great, but you know what I mean, they're not critically renowned, if you like.
Yeah.
But you find them for like 50p with us. I mean, I found some great stuff recently, going back and buying stuff that, you know, I liked back then and never got around to buy. I mean, today I had Echo Beach by Martha and the Muffins arrived today. Like
Okay. Yeah.
75p it cost me, you know. It's a
Yeah.
great record.
It's you can't. You know, there's two ends of the spectrum, is there? There's the ridiculously expensive 45s. There's
Yeah,
sort of the new 45s, which are, well, I don't know, knocking on 15 quid these days.
yeah.
And then obviously you've got ours. And big up to Miller Miller Funkier and
So,
Double P coming in with Violet Crumble. He's
oh yes,
he's always trying to stir the
it all
pot
is.
there.
I know. I've got to have I must try a Violet Crumble one day. I really must.
I think they sell them at B&M. I don't know if they still have
I
actually.
don't know where we haven't got a B&M in
I don't know if
Southend.
you've
We're
got
not.
one anywhere near you, but
Yeah.
next time I'm seeing you, if I can, I'll try and pick one up.
Okay,
But right, okay. So let's move on to DJing then. So when did you start DJing, and what was it
yeah,
involved?
well, my first experience of DJing was Paul Tunkin, who runs Blow Up Records and the Blow
Right,
Up
yeah,
Club in London. You know, it became
yeah.
very big during the sort of the whole Britpop thing. He is an old friend of mine. I've known him since he was 15 and I was 16. He used to work in a chemist in Benfleet, the town I was born in and raised in, and they had a little record department, and Paul used to work in that. So that's how
Right.
I got to know Paul.
Okay.
He used to go in there, and he used to get told off by the boss, Mr. Cross, who's Cross the chemist, for talking to me for too long, because we used to talk about music for a lot. And that was the
Right.
time, so around about 81-ish, something like that. And about 82-ish, Paul decided he wanted to set up a club, and he set up a club in Southend, and
Nice.
it was called the Monkey House. Is in and I used to do the warm up for him, basically, just because I was a mate. He said, "Do you want to play some records while, you know, just for the first half hour, 3/4 hour or so?" So I used to play Depeche Mode and Human League and all that kind of thing. But I
Yeah.
always played James Brown. I always liked playing James Brown, Sex Machine, and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, halfway through the evening, he'd have a quarter of an hour break, 20-minute break, and I'd do a little bit. But that was my first experience of DJing.
And when was that? What year are we talking?
82, 83, something like that.
And was it like a proper sort of 2-deck mixer
Yeah,
setup, or
it was the old school, you know, all in one,
all in one? Yeah.
all in one double deck thing with a mixer in it, all in there. But it's a sealed unit, weren't they, in those days? But yeah, it was you know, it was proper decks and stuff. But so I was only selecting like I do now. But that, and then from then on, I DJing, I didn't do it for many years. The odd party, you know,
Right.
people had decks at a party, I'd jump on and play. You know, during the sort of the Britpop thing and all that,
Yeah.
Happy Mondays and the baggy scene, I did a few parties. But it wasn't until about 8 years ago when I bought my own decks, after not having anything to play vinyl on for years. I booked some CDJs first, and I DJed on CDJs for quite a bit in a local pub,
Right.
with the Railway, which unfortunately is no longer with us in Southend. But we used to do, me and my mate, Mr. Mondo, Dave, we used to do a Sunday afternoon. There was a blues club on a Sunday afternoon. It ran from 4 till, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock. and we used to DJ around that. And quite often they'd ask us, we just stay on, and just after the clubbing, we just carry on. I think 3 o'clock in the morning on the Monday morning, it would have been. That was the latest we finished. And Dave's wife didn't speak to him for about 3 weeks. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I mean that's late. I did
Yeah.
Brighton on Saturday, and that was a 3 a.m. finish. And then by the time you get home, I mean, it's not an old person's game anymore. But yeah, I mean, back in the day that would have been nothing, but now it's.
So we didn't even get paid. We just did it because we liked doing it.
Yeah.
And the landlord was. I mean, sometimes he'd bung us 20 quid, or he'd get us a drink and that, but
yeah,
we never got paid for it. And yeah, we just played. I just played jazz dance stuff around the blues thing, and Dave used to play some blues and some soul, and that's what we play just in between the sets and before and afterwards. So it's good. Yeah. And then when I got my decks, but even then, I don't really DJ out very much. The odd party. I've done a couple of nights, a local place, a couple of disco nights we've done, but it's not a regular thing for me to DJ out. So it's not it's never been a regular thing.
Now you're
what I am.
Yeah, well now you're a Twitch DJ, but we'll come back to Twitch in a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go for your second choice. What have you chosen?
Right, the second choice is the first record I ever bought, which I've still got, and I bought it in 1974, and it's Suzi Quatro's Devilgate Drive.
Welcome to the dive. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
That's another cool one, and I mean, I was going to ask you a couple of questions about it, but Galen Hardy got in there first.
I saw Galen Hardy's.
Did you buy this record for the tune or Susie's leather catsuit?
You know what? I was 8 or 9. I didn't really understand Suzi Quatro. It's only when I'm a man of a certain age now that I can fully appreciate Suzi Quatro's leather catsuit. But at the time, I didn't at all. I just like that record. And you say, I don't even know.
Well, I was going to say, how did you? I was going to say, how did you come about it? Is it something you'd heard?
I've got this memory of a shop, and I don't know where I bought it. But I think I bought it. There was a shop called Keddy's in Southend, which was a independent. Like they used to get those old independent sort of like the Grace Brothers type thing,
Yeah.
That kind of store in Southend, and they had a record department. And I used to go down there, and I just remember going down there one day when I was in 74, so I was 9. And I've got this picture in my head of a. It's like a big sort of bowl of records, and they were all just chucked in and filed in for an. I just thought, I'll buy that. And it probably cost me like 50p, probably, I don't even know, but yeah, and that's the original copy. I've still got it. So I've had that record for, a long while.
That's amazing. But that's one of the beauties of buying records, isn't it? You've got that, you've had it all these years, and you can still play it, 40, 50 years later.
It's really good nick. It's got a few scuffs on it, but it still sounds as punchy as it ever did.
Exactly. And it's a great record. And as Fat Wax said, they had a very large opening for back in the day. Did those suits?
They did. They did. Yes.
It was a different time. Hot gossip on the Kenny Everett show, as
Yeah,
Double P
yeah,
says.
yeah.
I
mean,
don't remember. I remember the Kenny Everett. I don't remember much about it. I just remember like the crossing and uncrossing of legs
yeah,
and all that.
they had a name,
I
didn't they?
can't remember what actually happened on that show because I think I might have been just
It was very, very.
slightly too young.
Yeah,
at that time.
it was lots of double entendres and
Yeah.
Cupid Stunt. That character was called.
Yeah,
They put it across the legs, and they had to change it. And they changed it to something equally as disgusting, but I can't remember what it was now.
Sid Snot.
So Sid Snot, yeah, used to throw the factories now. Brought a 45 out called Snot Wrap. You still see it sometimes in junk shops, but even I won't buy that. It's so terrible.
Let's bring us back to the what was the one that Dee put on the Morris Miners?
Oh yeah, Morris Minor. Yeah. Stutter Wrap. I think we've all bought that recently.
Yeah. In the best possible taste. I remember that catchphrase definitely.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of there, but that was all, it was different time. But it was more innocent because I don't think it was. You see some of the pop stars now and what they wear and how sexualized it is. Susie Quattro was never sexualized, not really. She was just like a tough girl in a leather jumpsuit and playing rock and roll, And it wasn't. She never really over. That's what she was. And she's still going. She's still doing gigs. I follow her on Twitter and I follow her on Instagram. And she's just done a tour of Australia.
Wow.
She's the person who's toured Australia more than anybody else ever. She's done 37 tours of Australia, and she's still doing it. It's like, she's 75, I think. She's still going.
We'll have to ask Mr. Lobb if he's been to a Susie Quattro gigs over there. Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, let's talk about you mentioned Twitch, or I brought it up, and obviously we're on Twitch, but before Twitch, I think you did, and because you did a post about this recently, you did a set for Pete Brady, Superfly Belfast, Superfly Funk and Soul in Belfast, and I think that would have probably been on Facebook rather than
it was Facebook
Twitch,
Live. It was about 2 years ago. No, maybe 3. I can't remember now. Might have been 2 years ago. It was up to when the first lockdown was in. So it was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 and a bit. Yeah, 2 and a bit.
It was about sort of April time, and Pete had this idea of doing loads of DJ stuff for raising money for the NHS, and we all did half an hour. That's what it was. And I did some. I did a set. I think the Millers might have done a set. I think they did.
I think so. Maybe the
Alex did a set. Sam did a set. There was a few other people around who did sets as well. But it's all quite. Nick Corbin did some live set. Emrys did a live set from the Soul Immigrants. It was really good. It was a really good day, and we could play what we wanted. So it was, as long as it was vinyl. It was all, everyone did vinyl, I think, but it was. We all played. I think I played mainly album tracks on that little set. But it was at half an hour, and it took weeks and weeks and weeks to set the kit up. It was a nightmare. Yes, I was just seeing both the Millers played. I remember seeing them both play. They did an hour-long thing. And there's a guy called Norman in Belfast who was on the phone to me for weeks trying to get it sorted out, and we managed to sort it out. And it was really, really good fun. And that's when the first time I ever come across Sam. That's the first time I ever came across Twitch, really, or heard of Twitch.
It seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because we've all been on it for almost 2 years, I guess. It's almost like trying to remember what life was like before streaming.
It is like that because it's just so ingrained and so much a part of our lives now.
Yeah.
It's almost like we can't remember what it was like beforehand. There was like before Twitch and after Twitch. That's how I would remind COVID.
Well, and I think that's definitely true, isn't it? Because obviously we've all bonded sort of through the Facebook group.
Yeah.
But I think comments and posts and photos is one thing. I think sort of coming on and actually seeing each other. Like we've talked about this before. You were very vulnerable because you're letting people into your home, into your studio, your front lounge, your garden, whatever it is, and it's connection. You're actually seeing people for quite long periods of time. I mean, I'm sure people are sick of me by now, but I'm sort of on 2-3 times a week and coffee and donuts each week and all the rest of it. But it's not just the odd quick couple of minutes here and there. So we have all quite bonded amazingly.
Right, so you get to know. It's knowing people who've actually never met him. It was Norman. It was
Norman
Criztoz. That's
Norman
it.
Criztoz, yeah.
He's a lovely fellow. He's a really nice fellow, really good DJ as well. He's got amazing taste in Northern soul music.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, so most of the people on Twitch I've never met. I mean, I've met you. I've met Sue and Paul Miller, but I met them before the Twitch thing happened. I met them.
Yeah.
That's before lockdown happened. They went to a gig. The Get Up played down in.
Yeah, great.
Down in Lee, and they went along, and I went to that as well, and that's when I met them. But yeah, and then it was just a really. I'd never seen anything like that before. I never watched any online DJing or anything. It's just not a thing I'd ever done. Well, I think it didn't really exist much, did it, before COVID? A few people were doing it. A few people were doing it.
Yeah, I think a few people were doing it, and my memories of it, I just can't remember if it was live or recorded. I remember some of the, not the Boiler Room because that was always recorded, but I remember that, for example, DJ Coco playing, I think it was the Technic 7 launch party. Yeah. And I remember watching that, but again, I can't remember if that was a live stream or whether it was a recorded thing that I watched, but it's certainly not. It's nothing to what it is now. That 24 hours a day, 30, 365 days a week. There's DJs across the world and multiple DJs. Not just one.
The Allergies were doing it, weren't they? I think that's some of the first, the first people I watched post that Pete Brady thing was Roy and Adam doing. They used to do a Saturdays afternoon thing. I think that's where I first come across Fat Wax actually, because. They had some of these one of those slip mats, the 45 Kings 7 slip mats.
All right, yeah.
And I just said, "Oh, they're nice. Where do they get them?" And I think Mark was in the show, and he goes, "Oh, I sell them." Straight away. No, they said it's 45 Kings, and Mark was in the show. Yeah, I've got some. So I said, "Okay," and I found out what his name was, and I Facebook messaged him, and then the rest is history, really. And he just said, "Oh, 45 Kings," and then from then on. Everything happened, but that first DJing online was very, very stressful at that time because none of us knew what we were doing in those days. But now you just plug in and go, don't you? Really, I don't even think about it.
Well, I think we've got to the point where it's almost like we discussed earlier. It's almost like having a studio in your house, isn't it? And touch wood, most of the time you switch it on and it just works. I know we've had one of the issues we've had is you being able to hear me, so we're not able to play the music directly. But like I said to you earlier, it's mainly about the chat and
and that's that's to do with my system and my sound.
Yeah. But we make it work, and it's like everything, you sort of work around it. And I think that's one of the things also with Twitch and DJing and we work loopholes and make things work, for that. Cool. So I think that's another one you've got lined up, which we're on number 3.
Yeah.
What have you got for number 3?
Right. This is probably the first sort of pop band I ever really discovered.
Okay.
At the time, back in sort of, God blimey, 78, something like that. 77, 78, it would have been 78. So I'm just a little bit too young for punk. I was around about 10, 11. So I knew about it, and I knew about the Pistols. I remember seeing the Pistols doing the whole Bill Grundy sweary TV thing. I actually saw that at the time, but musically it didn't really resonate with me. But a band called Darts, who I've actually got their badge on today, my friend Billy sent me today, which is very, very nice of him. Really were the first band I really loved, and this is one of their earlier singles. It's called "The Boy from New York City." I can't hear you now.
So it's my fault. So that's a band that I didn't know of before. I might have done in the long distance past, but you know, you put a photo or a link up to your badge that someone had sent you.
That's right.
And yeah, so that's the cool. It's a nice bass line to start with as well.
Yeah, they're
Definitely.
great. It's a really, they'd say that's my favourite of their records. I've got about 4, 5, 6 of their singles and an album.
Yeah.
It's the first album I ever bought was by Darts, and they were sort of that kind of very sort of 50s rock and roll based type thing.
Yeah.
Apparently they're still going. They're still doing gigs. They've just done a few gigs recently, and they're still all the original members. One of the singers is from Southend actually. He died late last year, unfortunately, but the rest of the band is still going. Apparently they were the biggest party animals in all of the music. I mean, all the rock bands used to go,
Right.
and no one could drink and party like Darts, and they were apparently an absolute nightmare. They were like wrecking hotel rooms. They all like what we call clean cut, but they were terrible. But yeah, they're a great band, and I still love them, and they've still got a big fan base. Yeah, so follow them on Instagram, and these badges have just come out. And my friend Billy just messaged me and said, "What's your address, Mark?" I said, "I've got your badge." I said, "Oh, cheers!" It's really, really lovely thing to do. Oh, yeah, they're good. It's a great band, and I'd already chosen that to come on anyway, so just coincided.
Well, there you go. Life's all about timing, and obviously that's good timing that had sort of picked up. So, okay, let's move on a little bit. One of the shows that you are part of is the 45 Kings channel. Is Bright as the Sun.
Yeah.
There's you, Fat Wax, Butchie B, Ouija. Mr. Lob. So let's talk about that a little bit. So how did that show come about, and what is it about? And we can then talk about jazz in more detail after that.
Yeah, well, I think it's I'd always dropped a few jazzy type tunes in my sets, and when the second Jambra happened, my set was basically a jazz set really, and so Mr. Lob, Rob. And so I discovered that he really liked jazz as well, and then and Graham and then Matt as well and Mark. We all discovered he liked. And Rob just sent me a message one day. I said, "Thinking of doing this. Do you fancy doing it?" And originally it was me, Graham, Fat Wax, and Rob, and we did our first one. It seemed to go down quite well. And we got more. It started off all 45s. Jazz influence because it does broaden it out a bit.
Yeah.
I think out of all of us, I'm probably the one is more of the purist.
The more purist,
yeah. As it goes to what I play, I still like all that jazz influence stuff and all the hip hop. I just don't play that kind of stuff as jazz influence records. And then I couldn't do the second or the third one. I was going to a wedding. I think it's the third one, and so they asked Butchie to do it, and then Butchie probably got a big part of it. So, and Butchie does it now as well. So yeah, it's every second Sunday of the month we play. It's 5 of us, so it's 5 hours of all 45s, all jazz influence, and it goes from I play sort of Count Basie and Duke Ellington and stuff right up to sort of Gangstar and Tropical Quest and breaks and all that kind of. As long as it's got a jazz influence to it, we play it, and we all complement each other very well because we all play. Me and Matt seem to play more similar stuff, I think.
Right.
And then Ouija, Rob and Marky play, some more sort of the breaky type stuff. As Mark plays quite a lot of jazz funk, but it's really good fun. It's my favourite stream to do of the month. I love doing it. It's one thing you always enjoy doing it. It's and we have good.
Yeah, like Fat Wax says, he has to play influences of jazz. His traditional jazz is super thin, but it's interesting what you say about Butchie because I remember him talking about it, and he was like, I remember saying he might just about have enough for like an hour set, and then suddenly he's like a regular now. He's got loads of jazz. And I think I guessed it on. I can't remember.
We did one. Then
I guessed it on one. And even then, before I was like, because I think Rob had said to me, and I was like, I'm not sure I've got enough. But then you start digging, and you're actually, you know what? Actually, this is sampled by someone, and this is jazzy, and then that's jazzy. And then it's again, like with all of these little genres, you start going down the rabbit hole, and then I start buying jazz.
Yeah.
And it's you're just like, how many more genres can I sort of collect?
That's
But
right.
it's
So my jazz collection, I had some, but now I've probably got 400 or 500 jazz influence 45s now.
yeah. I
Which
don't know. I don't know if it's also maybe an age thing, because again, I don't think a few years ago it would have been something that would have necessarily piqued my musical interest. Yeah. I mean, obviously I know jazz, but maybe I just wasn't deep into it enough. But it's interesting how you sort of move on with your musical
right.
tastes and how things change. But
Well, I said it's always been in my life, jazz.
yeah,
But I sort of railed against it until I was about 16, 17. And there's a few albums that my dad picked up around that kind of time that really sort of, I really like this. For some reason, it just clicked with me. And then you start finding your own way with jazz. And
yeah,
my taste is a lot more modern than my dad's, really.
yeah,
And then the whole jazz dance scene kicked off with the Dingwalls and stuff. I never went to any of it because that's when I had my accident. So I was never fit enough to go. But people like Giles Peterson and Paul Murphy
yeah,
and Patrick Forge and all those guys, and Snowy's a mate of mine. Snowboy's a friend of mine.
yeah.
All those guys, huge influences musically on me. And all those street sounds, jazz juice albums that came out in the late 80s. I bought all of those, and then and I've got lots of jazz now, and I love it. I listen to it all the time. So it's one of my favourite things to DJ is that whole soul jazz thing. And so it's always an outlet every month. Got to do a jazz set. And
it's perfect, really, and it's yeah. We'll come back. Yeah, I was going to ask you another question, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah. Right, what have you got for number 4?
Right, I've got some jazz, but I'm going to play that a bit later on. This one, is when you get to a sort of teenager, and there's always a band that really resonate with you, and they're your band. Some people it's a special. For most people in my year at school, it was the Jam and the Specials and bands like that. And I never really liked them. I never really got into them, but I like this band. They were a Tom Robinson band. I've always been quite political, and they were a very political band. And lots of what they talked about in '78. Unfortunately, still resonates today. And I just love this band. And this record, brilliant guitarist called Danny Criztoz, who is still one of my favourite guitarists ever. And Tom Robinson, Radio 6 DJ now. And he's like, the granddaddy of Radio 6 at 71 or 72, whatever, isn't it? But he was, he's sort of a real sort of gobby little punky type bloke back in those days. She's great. Up Against the Wall.
Dark and dangerous school kids, vicious, suspicious 16. Jet black faces at the bus stop, so unhealthy and mean. Teenage gorillas on the tarmac, fighting in the middle of the road. Supercharged spinners on the asphalt, the kids are coming in from the cold. Look out, listen, can you hear it? Panic in the county hall. Look out, listen, can you hear it? Right home, up against the wall, up against the wall. High-rise fencing on the playground, high-rise housing all around, high-rise prices in the high street. I'm trying to put it all down. All these boys sticking in the window. Take those watching where they go. Never trust the cover in the front bar. Just too sorry you are. Said, look out, listen, can you hear it?
That's another great track.
Oh, they've got an album out called Power in the Darkness that came out in '78. And it's still one of my favourite albums of all time. It's very, very political. And it talks about, it's really all the kind of things that we're going through now. They were talking about, over 40 years ago. And still love it. Still, again, that would still be one of my in my top 10 favourite records of all time. That I just love it. It's really, really exciting, that record.
Yeah. No,
Great stuff.
that's another great choice. Okay, so what I was going to ask you about is obviously you came on Part of My Journey, I think episode 2, which is the mental health talk show I do.
Yeah.
And also you came up with a brilliant question, which we now use on pretty much every show of, you know, what 45s lift your spirit. So, I ask guests to bring 3 45s.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about that show about mental health. And it was some time ago now, but I think one of the things you talked about was the sort of group and the 45 Kings group and how that had helped you. So, where are you sort of at with that now? I mean, I assume it's still quite a supportive group, and then obviously we've got Twitch as well, which supports and is having, being, a host of a regular show. We'll talk about the radio stuff in a minute, but for example, having Bright as the Sun, is that helping in the current lifestyle?
I think what it does more than anything else, before lockdown, when I was like, just to give a bit of background, I'm medically retired from work because I've got a back condition and I broke my leg when I was just about 20, 1985. It's never really healed. I've got a leg brace, I walk with a stick. I'm quite disabled mobility wise. So I left work about 8 years ago. And so basically I don't do anything really.
Right.
Except, I mean, I did the radio we talk about, but the whole Twitch thing, it gives you something to focus on. It gives you something to look forward to. It gives you something to say, I'm doing a set next week. I'll do it. So, I've got to think about that. And it gives you something to focus on rather than just sitting there watching YouTube videos all day long or, Homes Under the Hammer or Find It, Fixed It, Flog It or whatever, which I still do. I still watch all that. But it does give you something else to do and it gives you a bit of focus. And that's always a good thing, I think, because you just can't. It's very, very easy when you've not got to get up for work every day. You can just drift because you just, all my mates are at work, so you can't really, hang out with them. Luckily, I don't drink. So, one of the reasons I got involved in the radio station, one of my mates, because I'm not drunk for years. So, do you want to run the website? So better than to sit and cracking the can of lager over at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I took it up on him, so I would like to do it, yes. But I was never going to do that because I don't drink anyway.
Yeah.
But had I been a drinker, or I smoked lots of pot or whatever, it's very, very easy to get into that if you're not doing anything because you don't have to get up for work, so you might as well just go to the pub, So when you haven't got even that, you find yourself just sitting around staring at walls and not doing anything, and it's quite a solitary life. I live on my own. I haven't got a partner. See your mates sometimes at weekends, but you don't really do anything. But having Twitch and something to focus on really is a good thing. It really is a good thing because and you always. Sometimes you don't really feel like doing it. I don't know if you have that some days. It's not, most of the time you want to do it.
Occasionally, occasionally, yeah.
Sunday, you got to it and I thought, I've got to do it. I don't really want to do this. But by the time I was 2 records in, I'm in it again now and I'm loving it. It's that quick.
Yeah, it's just getting started, isn't it? And just say hello to Scotty Boy. It's interesting because in the in one of the Facebook groups we've got in the Facebook chat groups Raiders of the Lost Ark, 45 Finch was saying pretty much the same thing. He had a gig, he was looking forward to it, but he was really anxious about going out. And I think most of us were like, once you're there, once you drop the needle and play the first couple of records, then it does. And it's the same with Twitch, isn't it? Even if you're not feeling it, as soon as you go live, you drop a record or two, someone comes in the chat, says hello, how you doing? And then it's just, you're then interacting with someone. And like you say, for you, obviously, if you're not being able to see your mates because they're working, there's always someone on Twitch watching.
There's always someone
even if it's 5, 10, 15, however many people it is, you do your afternoon delights after hump day.
Right,
so obviously then there's people coming in from hump day and then people hanging out and they're hanging out with you. So you've got that social element without having to go out and having to do anything.
I haven't done it for a while. I will get back to doing it, but I haven't done it for a while. I was doing a little thing on a Monday morning. I just thought I'd just set out to do it. And there was sometimes like maybe 10 people if I was lucky, but some of those people came back every week. And there's a couple of people from Mr. Pate Mix used to drop by,
Yeah.
Minizel as well.
Yeah.
Playing all these old records, and they go, "Oh, I really like this. I remember this." And it's just that interaction you get in with someone, and a bit of
Exactly.
feedback, and it doesn't. It just makes you feel good. It does. It's that whole thing.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. That I'm not. I've got quite a bit of social anxiety, and I don't really like parties, and I don't like. But
Yeah.
when you do it as a DJ, you've got that barrier.
Definitely. Yeah.
But one of the greatest things as a DJ is when someone comes up to you and says, "What was that tune you just played?"
Yeah.
Get all that other crap about, "Have you got this record?" And you're like, no. When you play, I'll tell you, I think I've said before, I'm playing a jazz dance set and someone says, "Have you got any Cat Stevens?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
play some Brian Adams. Well, I've got some Brian Adams, but I'm not going to play it in the middle of this set because it's not going to work, is it?
No.
It's. But when someone actually comes over and makes a point of saying, "What's that record? I really like that," I'll take it off. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
When you play something I like,
I had
all that rubbish. But,
I had a chap on Saturday night. We were in Brighton, and he came up to me with his phone and said, "I've just got back from Egypt, and this is the biggest song in Egypt," and just held his phone up. And I was like, "Well, I haven't got that on vinyl." And he was just like, "Oh, right, okay." And then he just walked off. And it's just, I think the kids now just expect you to just plug it in and just play whatever.
People got used to that, and that's the
yeah.
I mean, one of my mates is a digital DJ, and he can rock a party because he plays what people want. People come and say, "Can you play that?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll play that." And it's a different approach entirely, but for him it works. And the parties and clubs the pubs he does, it works. And the place is rocking by the end of the evening. They're all doing sing-alongs. Absolutely my worst nightmare. People singing along the records I'm playing. I don't want to know that. I'm sorry. I know it sounds like I'm a music snob, and yes, I am.
Well,
I'm not playing Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm sorry.
I think we're sort of old enough and sort of ugly enough to sort of realise that, if you're going to go and play out, you've got to have the right venue for a start, especially absolutely. What we do. You're going to have the right venue and the right clientele and the right promoter, because, there's no point booking me, for example, to do like, I've been asked to do things like 21st birthdays, and I'm just like, there's no point me doing it because I don't have any of the music these kids are going to want.
Besides, people say, I've been asked to do weddings before, and I've done a couple, but those people know what my music's like.
Yeah.
And one of my I couldn't do it because I was on holiday. One of my mates asked me to do. I was really gutted in a way because although I really enjoyed my holiday with my folks, I was asked to do a wedding and it was at Wilton's Music Hall in London. It's a fabulous, brilliant place. My mate got married there last week, and he said, "Do you want to do more?" And I said, "I can't because I'm going on holiday anyway." But but I've asked to do weddings, and I'm not going to do a wedding because I haven't got Uptown Girl by Billy Joel, and I will never play it. But it's that, and you can call me out. I will never play that record. The Birdie song, I'm never going to play it.
It's because usually the people with bride and groom who are asking you know your stuff and they like it, but it's they're only going to see a bit about it. It's all the other people who go to weddings and may not go out that often and just want to hear what they think a wedding DJ is going to play. And if I get out, I'm normally saying, "Look, I'm not a wedding DJ. I'm just a friend of the bride and groom. This is what they've asked me to play. This is what I'm playing." Absolutely. And they normally walk off very disappointed. But I mean, it's just like, well, don't book me next time for your wedding. That's the way it goes.
When it comes to weddings and that kind of parties, I've done a few. I got asked to do a full shift. Just someone pulled out. So could you do it? And I said, "Okay." Well, you know what I play, and I said, "Yeah, okay." And I said, "Okay." Well, I just took a box of disco records with me and played that all night, and it went down all right because that stuff always goes down well, doesn't it? Yeah. Even the most hardcore of crowds, you put on the Bee Gees and Earth, Wind and Fire and Chaka Khan, they're going to dance to it.
Exactly, it cuts through
it cuts through things, and but it's not what I do.
No, and I don't enjoy playing it. That's the thing, because I like playing music. Although I know you could drop these, classic disco, funk, or whatever, and then you'd have a full dance floor. It just doesn't do anything for me. It's just like, well, it's almost like my good friend Joe Law, who's a DJ locally, and he used to have a record shop. We'd be out, and usually at the end of the night, it'd end up into like drum and bass or whatever, because it'd start reggae, funk, hip hop, whatever, drum and bass. And he'd always say, "Oh, that's cheating. Playing drum and bass is cheating, because it doesn't matter what drum and bass tune it is. Most people will get up and dance. So it's almost like you're not really trying very hard. You just put something on that's got a fast beat, and people get up."
But if you're trying to get people to dance,
Exactly.
I've always gone. Someone told me this once. One of my mates told me this, and he's quite a good DJ, a well-known DJ. Is what you do is, it's a cliche, but you get the girls to dance first, and then they get their boyfriends up and their husbands. So in that situation, you put on "I'm Every Woman" by Chaka Khan when they're all half cut, and they are going to dance.
Of course they are, yeah.
And they're all singing it, and because they're all drunk, and they're all going to sing. And it's like, and then their boyfriends get up, and then you're halfway there. And then you're laughing. It's no skill involved at all. It's not skillful, or it's route one. But
and I don't know what parties Double P's been going at, but he says the Birdie song smashes it.
God, Mummy never got
don't. I think the Birdie song is definitely a no-no.
He's completely right. He's completely right, because people dance to it, but I never want to go to a party that's played, and I will never play it. It's one of those things, isn't it? But then there are DJs who do that, and they're very successful. And some of them,
each to their own. I fully appreciate where
great DJs, those guys, because they rock a party. But
I fully appreciate where we're still pretty niche, although we're in the 45s community, and we think it's big. It's still quite a tiny little sliver of the music industry. So
the digital thing, that with every single record in the world is to hand, basically.
But that's
something I don't get. I've never understood digital DJing.
I think it's a hindrance. I think it's a hindrance, especially when you're DJing out, because if you have got 10,000 songs, how the hell do you choose what to play? And I was talking to someone about this at the weekend, and I was like, when I was doing more digital DJing, I would prepare records, and I just end up playing the same stuff, because I knew it would get people up dancing, and you just end up playing the same stuff. And eventually I just like, what, I'm a bit bored of this. Whereas now you pack your bag and you've got what you've got. You take a chance, and occasionally you might get it wrong and might have the wrong records, but as long as you pack enough of a genre or a split, you could probably rock most parties. My
mate Billy Reeves always says that, is when he's DJing, sorry, it's not in the box, and that's all you got to say.
Exactly. And then they walk away.
Sorry, I didn't bring it. I didn't bring it today.
And it's annoying. It is annoying when they say, "Can you play this?" And you're like, "I have got it. I just haven't got it with me tonight." And you're like, "Oh, I should have brought that one." But
well, there's that as well. But when the first couple of parties I remember I did a party that was a wedding. Took my mate had a wedding, and he had two receptions.
Right.
One in Norfolk, one in Southend. And both times I took 9 boxes of records with me.
Wow.
I did 8. I did 4 hours on the first one, 8 hours on the second one. But even so, it's like, it's far too. And now I know not to do that.
Yeah.
You take your 200, and that's what you do, and that's what you've got.
Yeah, I think you can. That's about enough.
Yeah.
And that's what P says. One of his mates DJs in Ibiza, and all he takes is a memory stick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's a different world. It's a
different world. And we're the mad ones, because we're the ones who putting our backs out, lobbing.
And also the ones spending lots of money on it as well. I imagine a lot of these DJs, okay, they probably buy some of the stuff on Beatport, but I imagine a lot of the remixes and re-edits and stuff they're just getting, off SoundCloud or downloads or whatever.
Right.
Right, let's move on. I think I've lost count. Number 5.
Number 5, actually.
5. Okay, that's good. We're still on track.
You're still on track.
I normally lose track of how many halfway through.
This is a record that so we'll come on to it a bit later on, but I do a radio show, and I've done a radio show for coming out for 7.5, 8 years now. And there's a couple of records that are very important to that particular show. But this record is the one that's been played the most on our on. I used to have a friend of mine called George, and he no longer does it because he had work commitments. Couldn't do it. But this is the record that we played the most on the show over the years. It's Southern Freeze by Freeze.
Another classic, and Scotty Boy likes it. Double P likes it. Fat Wax likes it. Funky Flavors. Also, Mr. Pete. Big shout out to Mr. Pete.
One of those records.
And as Fat Wax says, all dirt cheap. You know, these aren't crazy expensive records, are they?
No, it's not. It's not. It's again a record I've had for God knows 30 odd years. When did it come out? 1931 that came out. So yeah, that's 40 years old, that record. God. Doesn't make you feel old, does it? But it's always been a great record, and it still sounds. I think it still sounds as good now as it did then. And there is a new version out at the moment, or someone's done a sort of cover, I think.
Yes, Scotty Boy mentioned the new version. I don't know who's done the.
Well, I've heard it. It's not as good as that, but it's actually older than. It's not as old as me, Scotty.
I think that's pot and kettle though, because
older than me, Scotty. But you know,
Scotty Boy, the oldest. He's a granddad as well now. He's the oldest one of the 45 Kings.
I'm not even a dad.
Yeah.
We're not. I was actually thinking. I thought me and Scotty were the oldest 45 Kings, but the Millers are older than us. So
are they?
They are.
I didn't know that.
I won't mention their age, but they are actually a bit older than us.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all good fun. It's all banter. You know, we're all good friends, and I'm looking forward to going and seeing, if I'm still invited, to seeing Scotty up in Edinburgh again in July. And actually, you're coming up, Mark, for that, aren't you?
I am coming up. Yeah,
as is Double P, as is Fat Wax 45, as is Funky Flavors. Actually, pretty much most of the people in this chat are coming up to the Edinburgh 45s weekend that we're putting on. That's 29th to 30th of July. So it's going to be great for all of us to actually be in the same room. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
It's actually going to be the 30th is actually my birthday, so it's going to be quite good fun, I think.
Yeah. It's good. It looks like I've just been uninvited by Scotty Boy. So okay, maybe I won't see you. Anyway, right. Let's talk about the radio show then. So, Ship Full of Bombs.
That's right.
How did you first get involved in that, and tell us about it?
Yeah, it was set up about 9 years ago now. I think it's about 9 years old. The station set up by a friend of mine, two friends of mine, Tom and Al, set this station up, and it was going for about a year. And then when I was medically retired from work, I've been off about 6 months, and Al just said to me one day, "Look, we need someone to look after the website and update the schedule." I don't really do much, but I update the schedule. And we used to do more on the website. We don't really do much anymore.
Don't play it down. I've been doing a lot on my website, and it takes time. But it's a lot of work. So don't play it down. It's hard work.
We used to do more. We don't do so much now. But he said, "Would you like to do it?" And okay, that'd be great. And I wanted to do a show, but me being me, I never ask.
Okay.
And my mates had a show, and it'd been on for quite a while. And he said, "Just ask." And eventually, I just got around and said, "Look, I wouldn't mind doing a show one day, Al." Because okay, we'll do a special. So I did a jazz dance special.
Nice.
Played it's mainly vinyl. I think it was mainly vinyl. A few CDs to that point. And then the guy who produced me was one of the producers on the station. And then Al said to me, "Do you want to do?" And we got on really, really well. I never met him, but we just clicked. And I did another show, just another special at some point. And then Al said, "Do you want to do a show?" I said, "Why don't you ask George?" I said, "Okay." So I asked George, and he said, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it." So we started. We were called Fun Cough to start with because we thought it was funny. But after about 2 episodes, we thought that's a really crap name. I come up with the Box of Delights, and we've been called the Box of Delights since then.
That's a much better name. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason we called it that, because when we first started, George always did it digitally, and I took 2 or 3 boxes of records, and literally I put my hand in and put a record on, and that's what we did. So it wasn't a planned at all. And for the first, up until lockdown, so about the first 6 years of that show, that's how we did it. Just completely random. And it's good fun doing like that, but you have to take too many records. And then George then got to the point where he was just too busy with work. He was already doing some production work as well and other stuff. And I do quite a lot of production. I produce about 4 or 5 other shows on the station. In total. But yeah, he got too much from it. So something's got to give. And he was finding it harder to choose records as well. And he said, "Do you want to carry on?" So I'll carry on. I'll do it. So when lockdown happened, I had to, basically. I had to do it. I was going to get a guest. I got a couple of guests in to cover for George, and I was thinking about how to do it. And then when lockdown happened, I got some kit, and I thought I can do it from home. And so I've done it on my own ever since. And next Tuesday is the 100th show. So
that's amazing.
Mark, really.
It is a landmark. Yeah.
We've had. It's been an amazing experience because we've had guests. We've had some live sessions. We had the Get Up have done a live session.
Amazing.
The King Rooster has done a live session.
Brilliant.
There's a local band called Mo Fingers, so sort of funky session, and a band called Primo Nelson, and then Billy Reeves, who was in the audience, who works on Radio London. He's been on the show a couple of times. Cy Chiba was our first ever guest. He was our first ever guest.
He's been doing a lot of stuff with Ouija, isn't he?
He's been doing stuff with Ouija because he used to live around the corner to me, and now he lives around the corner to Ouija, which is really quite cool.
It's a small world. Small world.
And the biggest coup for me, and the biggest thing for me was having Corduroy on a couple of times.
Yeah, amazing.
Which was an amazing experience because they were one of my favourite bands. I went to their first ever gig, and I used to go and see them before they were Corduroy. And then I was at a gig one day, and their guitarist just said to me, Simon, he said, "How's the show going, Mark?" I was like, "Oh, I'm enjoying it. It's good fun." I said, "Oh, you have to come on one day, just as you do, you know." And he went, "Yeah, all right. When do you want us to come on?" Me and Scott. I was like, "What really? Does yeah?"
Brilliant.
Okay. And then,
well, I mean, if you don't ask, you don't know.
I wasn't really even asking. I
know. But it's
I was putting it out there because if it ever happened, it'd be an amazing thing. But I didn't even expect them to say yes. But they come on a couple of times, and no doubt they will come back again at some point. Great fun. They didn't play, but they, chose some records and joined in the format. And and Rhea Curry is a local promoter, a singer. She's sung with the Soul Immigrants and with Speedometer. She's been on a number of times. She's coming on again next Tuesday, actually. She's been our guest the most. She's been on about 8 or 9 times. So it's great fun. I love doing it. The format's changed now because I'm doing it on my own. I now plan it.
Okay.
So I'll do it like a proper radio show. I actually format and I know what I'm going to play before I go on and stuff. And it's actually I sometimes don't choose enough records. I do this when I do the Twitch thing. I'm always going, "Oh, bugger, I've got 5 minutes to go and I've run out of records." So I have to always do that. I did it on Sunday.
It's not like you haven't got records around you.
No, it's not like I've got records there. So that's what's happening. Because I'm in the house.
It's fine, yeah. Well, exactly. You can just reach and grab something else.
Yeah, we have a few regular listeners, and we have a bit of banter on Twitch, on Twitter occasionally, which is quite good fun. It's it's a great experience, and I love doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's have a listen to number 6 then. What have you got?
Yeah, this is another one that is very connected with the show, because it's a record that I first heard on a comp, a jazz dance comp, one of those Mojo Jazz Club, the Hamburg Club, which is in the Reeper Barn. And it's a record that I heard on that first, and it's still the most expensive record I've ever bought. I paid about 30 quid for it, something like that, which is, not a great deal of money, really.
Compared to some of the records that some people have come on this show and talked about, that is pretty reasonable.
It's not my most valuable record, because I've got a few Northern Soul things I bought for peanuts, and subsequently worth a few bob.
Yeah.
But this is Roll Call by the Stance Brothers, and it's an absolute banger.
Cool.
Roll call. Roll call. Roll call. Max Roach, Art Blakey, Kenny Clark, Roy Haynes, Sonny Payne, Sam Woodard, Mel Lewis, Ed Blackwell, Billy Higgins, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, Buddy Rich, Paul Metz, Billy Joel, Jimmy Cobb, Joe Chambers, Linnell Fournier, Roger Humphreys, Al Foster, Grady Tate, Mickey Rocker, Joel Morello, Al Beats, Louis Hayes, Roy McCurdy, Billy Cobham, Idris Muhammad, Milton Banana.
Mark's down.
That's me again. Sorry. As Mr. Pete says, that break is funky as we can say on Twitch.
So simple. Yeah. It's a drum break with a bloke reading a list of the best jazz drummers over the top of it, or jazz and funk drummers, and that's all it is. But it's such a great record. It really, and me and George have done a couple of festivals. It's a local festival called Village Green that used to be on. It's not been on for a few years. I remember once playing that, and the tent was all quiet, and I put that on, and it just went bang. Everyone's jumping around. It's like, okay, that record works. It's just one of those records that no one knows what it is, but it always really works. It's a great record.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. Let's talk about 45 Day, because you've done a mix, and it's a brilliant mix. And I'm really pleased with what you did with that. And I think it's sort of slowly working its way up the Mixcloud charts. And while we're on the point, thank you to everyone who's already done a mix. I think I think Lee hasn't done one yet. I haven't seen. I know Mr. Pete's done one, and a few other people. So yeah, thank you to everyone who submitted up. We're up to I think 47 when we came on air. And we had Ouija doing the 45th mix, which was quite cool.
He snuck in.
He managed to get it. It was touch and go. Yeah, there's a couple sort of he landed just before he did, and I was waiting for him because he said he was going to come over, but he hit it.
Yeah, when I first got it, so my mix is 45 minutes, 45 seconds, which is a complete accident. I wish I could say I did it on purpose, but it wasn't. It was a complete accident. But it entered the Mixcloud chart at number 45. So I was quite pleased with that, really.
It's one of those things. I mean, obviously, I'm all about the 45s, but my friend used to say something about the number 27, I think, or 29. He'd always see it. Once you think of a specific number, you always see it all that. And now 45. Like every time I look at my phone, for example, it'll be like 17:45, or I'll look at my car dash and it'll be like 45 miles to go or whatever. It's crazy to do that, but because you look at it,
just because you noticed it. So I had a thing off the subject, but of 11:11 was the time, or 1:11.
Yeah.
And I'd see it all the time. But obviously, you see the time all the time, but you don't remember that. You just
No,
because
it's
that's
only
another.
when it's relevant to the number it comes
That's
out.
right, absolutely.
So
It's not like, yeah.
tell us a little bit about your mix then, and what you included in it and why you
Yeah,
chose
right.
those.
This mix, I've got to try and remember what I pointed at. I wanted to do. I thought about what to do and whether to. I love my disco, I love my soul, I love my funk, I love my pop. I thought about doing a cheesy pop one, but then because of the sort of the jazz hobblers thing and the whole Bright as the Sun, I wanted to sort of a soul jazzy thing. So I included a lot of sort of soul jazzy 45s, bit of jazz. So I've got some Buddy Rich, I've got some Hugh Masekela, I've got what else have I got? Arthur Lyman Trio, I've got Young Hope Trio, I've got some Della Reese and some Nancy Wilson. What else have I got? All that kind of stuff. That kind of sort of old Buddy Greco,
Yeah.
who was a famous, quite a bizarre story. He was a famous US jazz singer. It was a pianist for Benny Goodman back in the sort of the 40s and 50s.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, very, very massive star in the 50s, and ended up living in where I live in my town. For some reason, he moved to Westcliff-on-Sea in his 80s, 70s, and lived it. And I used to play the piano down the local pub. It's like, why is Buddy Greco living in Westcliff? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, he moved back, but why is he not living in Hollywood? No, but he chose to move to Westcliff.
Was it just for a quiet
Anyway,
life?
so I included it for that reason. So yeah, it's sort of soul jazz, vocals and instrumentals. The kind of stuff you'd hear me play basically on a Sunday on Bright as the Sun, and it's just it's really good fun to do.
And it's great. Yeah, no, I really enjoy that. I've enjoyed all of them. You know, I mean, it's it still blows my mind that this little idea I've come up with, and people just record mixes, and then they just sort of they drop in my inbox, like 2 or 3 a day or whatever, and I'm something like, brilliant, I've got another mix to listen to, and they're all different. You can see the personality of all the DJs coming through in each one. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to some.
Completely buzzing.
I'm a terrible insomniac, and I didn't sleep last night at all. I had about an hour's sleep, so I'm a bit tired. But I listened to what did I listen to last night? I listened to DJ JS, his mix.
Yeah, that was good.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I listened to Butchie. I think I listened to
Butchie's is good. Yeah.
SVO Lansky.
Yeah.
Who else did I listen to last night? There's a few others I listened to as well. Some really, really good stuff. It was great. It kept me going throughout the night because I listened to all these fabulous mixes. It was good.
Yeah, and there's I think there's still quite a few to come. I'm
I'm
still waiting. There's still lots to come. I mean, in fact, I've still got to record mine. Like I was saying to you just before, I've recorded a couple, but they're not quite what I want to do just yet. So I need to sort of sit down. And I think ZZ's going to do one as well. And
I love to hear ZZ. That'd be great.
I think maybe Minimal P might be doing one as well. And I don't know, maybe a couple of the other four. But again, it's really nice seeing, because I just put it out there to Mr. Lob. I just said, look, does JS want to do a mix? And he was like, yeah, brilliant. And then now he's got his own Mixcloud page. He's got a gig coming up in the pizzeria place.
He's really got a flow as well. I mean, he's not just his genres are really mixed up, but it all works. And it's like the way he mixes, and it's very smooth and stuff. It's lovely to hear. It's really good. And 8, or 7 or whatever. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's just brilliant having the kids. And I think I saw the 7-inch Collective. Actually, if you like your dub music, that's a really good mix as well. They've done a really good dub mix. But they're doing a thing, I think it's this weekend, where they basically put a poster up saying between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Bring your kids along and they can have a go at DJ. We'll bring the records. We'll show. And again, it's brilliant. Just spreading the love and spreading the passion of music and vinyl, and just sort of introducing it to these kids, because they're going to be the DJs of the future. They're going to be the people who might and they're listening to, I hope, very different things to what a lot of other kids are listening to. They're not just listening to.
It's so easy just to go on Spotify and you're not. And it also
exactly.
I'm going to sound like an old man now, and I am an old man. But all this stuff just sounds the same. All the stuff that's out now in the chart. I mean, I looked at the. I looked at the. You get those now whatever. It's now.
They're up to about now 1007 or something.
Now 112, I think.
Yeah.
And I looked at it in a record shop on Saturday that I was DJing in, and I think I knew one song.
Right.
The whole thing, and they're like, but you used to know all of them.
Yeah.
Well, there's 100 or whatever it is, 50 songs or whatever on that those comp. You used to know everything. Now as one, and I'm, you know, just
I think
just
for
don't
me
know.
the thing that does it for me is the auto tune.
Oh, it all sounds the same, doesn't it?
It's all quite. It just makes it all sound a little bit robotic when they're sort of. It's always because you can always hear it. It's right at the end, isn't it? At the end, they sort of. And I'm just because and also because of the music we listen to is a lot of funk and a lot of reggae and a lot of hip hop. It doesn't have auto tune on it, so you're listening to people's voices as they have been recorded, rather than sort of recorded and then it's pitched up to whatever key. I mean, it's just different. It's completely different to what we're into.
Well, the way I look at it, it's going to sound terrible because I've got no musical talent whatsoever. But the reason I don't make records is because I haven't got any musical talent. But these people obviously can't sing, so they auto-tune their voices, and then it sounds like they can. And it's like, well, that's cheating, isn't it?
But they also do it at live gigs as well, though. It's not just from recordings; it's at live gigs, and it's just a bit.
Turn off the auto-tune, and it's all flat.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be funny to hear some of this stuff without auto-tune on and see what it actually sounds like. But
it's just awful, and it just makes everything sound generic and exactly the same.
I mean, listen, if we were that age, we would probably be into it. But it's just, we're of a different age, obviously.
Charts meant something when we were young as well, and it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Well, no, I don't think it does. I don't think it does.
Not like it used to. When you got Ed Sheeran's got all the records in the top 10. It's like, well, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
David said, in my day, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's a load of grumpy old men.
Yeah,
Here we go. As Sky Boy, here we go. Pull up a chair. The men are grumpy.
Well, I'm proud of being a grumpy old man. I've worked a long time to get this grumpy, and I'm not going to give up.
We should. It's like they used to, I don't know if they still have it. The TV show, isn't it? Grumpy Old Men. They just pick a topic and just talk.
Well, I'm not the prime age for that now. Start out again. I go off.
Maybe I should look at doing that. Like have grumpy old survivors or something. We just moan about music.
Yeah,
the young
the fact they can't get marathons anymore, and it's all Snickers, and they changed the Opal Creek to Starburst. It's not fair.
if I edited together all the shows, which I do intend to do at one point, we can just show how grumpy we all are, arguing about what's better, a Violet Crumble or a Crunchy.
That's right. Yeah. Obviously, it's a Crunchy. There's no doubt about that.
And as 45 Finch says, in his day, the Beatles had all the songs in the top 10.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
They didn't have album tracks though. That's where it's changed, isn't it? Because it's all done on streaming, so they just play the same track of an album, and it's like it wouldn't be. You're right if Ed Sheeran was any good anyway.
Well, it's all very.
That's another argument.
But anyway, let's have an old record that's, I assume, not auto-tuned.
No, this is an old record, and this is a record I've chosen specifically because
number 7, isn't it? I think 7. We are going to do a couple more. I know you've got a few more lined up. Let's do this one.
Now, this record, it took me 30 years to find out what this track was called.
Okay.
And then it took me another about 6 or 7 years to find the record. So when I got it last year, it was one of the greatest moments of my record buying life. There's a Radio 4 show called Quote Unquote. And the theme tune to that is this record. And it's an unlikely person, but this is Dudley Moore, as of Pete and Dud and all that.
Oh yeah.
Burton Clive and his trio, and this is called Dudley Dell.
Okay. Yeah, that's a classic. I was doing a lot of air piano to that.
Yeah, so that's one of those.
Great track.
I was talking to one of the shows I produce on Chip for the Bomb is the jazz show on a Sunday.
Right.
And me and the guy who presents the show, we were talking on it last week. He played a Dudley Moore track, and he's one of those people that people don't realise that Dudley Moore is probably the finest jazz pianist this country's ever produced. Because he made records about, he did Pete and Dudley and Derek and Clive, which is just basically swearing and getting drunk and falling off the stool and being very, very childish. And then he went on to have a film career and all that. But a genius pianist, classically trained, went to the Guild School of Music, all that kind of stuff. Absolute genius. So that record, yeah. The reason I chose that is because it took me so long to find it, and it's a jewel in my collection, I think, because how long it took me to find it. It wasn't expensive because
is it just a rare one?
Yeah, it's just not rare. It's just it took me so long to find out what it was called. I knew it was Dudley Moore.
Oh, I see.
I didn't know what the title of the track was called.
Okay, I see. Adrian's saying he did a great version of Windmill of Your Mind as well.
Yeah. I've got a couple of his albums, and they're all really, really good. And so just a fabulous player. Really, really good.
Well, that's just 7 sevens, but as is usual on this show, people are allowed a few bonus tracks because choosing just 7 is very difficult. Yeah. So let's start with one of your bonus tracks. Well, what
one of my bonus ones. This is again with in mind that I've got the 100th show of Lots of Delights coming up. This is a record that came out in 1978 originally. It's on the Placebo, which is the great the St. Petersburg label. And it's very, very short. It's only 1 minute 25, so I'm going to play all of it if you indulge me. And this record, because it was short and it's punchy, I chose this as our theme tune. And for quite a long time, it was the theme to Box of Delights. So we started this. Brilliant. This record's been played on probably 70% of the shows. It's called Prelude by the Armenian TV and Radio Orchestra.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
It's when it came out on Placebo about 5 years ago or something. You won't get that for less than about 70 quid now for some. I don't know why, but it's ridiculously expensive.
It's a good tune, though. And as Scotty Boy says, that sounded a bit like Ironside.
It's a bit like that. It's got that kind of whole. Yeah, it's got that kind of whole feel. But what I love about it is that Soviet Union funk. And you just find these things sometimes, and that, they had so many brilliant. I mean, I've got a fantastic record. I played it on a stream a few weeks ago, on an album, on a Sunday, on a Road to the Lost Art, by at least German band, and it's their version of the House of the Rising Sun, and it's just amazing. And I remember talking to Fraulein Freakbeat about stuff. She played a few records, and I think me and Lee both ended up buying records that she played.
Now that's going to be expensive.
German. I said, "Have you heard this?" And I sent her a link. She said, "That's amazing! That's amazing!" And then she came back to me about half an hour later. I just found a copy. I just bought it. You know, just but it's so brilliant, and it's on an album, but it's on a really flimsy, crappy paper sleeve, and it's the most crappy bit vinyl. But it's some of the stuff in the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc was just absolutely tremendous. Like I say, it's our theme tune.
That's brilliant, and I think especially for a show like you say, having a theme tune is quite a good idea, and that's a great theme tune.
Yes, but it's dropped off a bit recently, but it will be getting played again on Tuesday on the 100th show, because it's
that's brilliant.
We actually, George, my co-host, did an edit of it, so he took it down to a minute.
Okay.
He took the middle 8 out of it. I don't know how he did it. He did it on Audacity, but he's clever at stuff like that, and I could never do it. But it worked. It seamlessly. It worked perfectly well. Nice. But our main computer crashed about 2 years ago, and we lost all the jingles and everything. So it has to be recreated anyway.
To create more, I mean, that's gutting when you lose stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like losing a record that you can't find, that you really want to play in a mix and just can't
Absolutely,
find.
Yeah. I mean, I had a jingle I had a jingle that Cordroy did for me.
Oh wow!
Scott from Cordroy did me a jingle, and that went as well. And one of those things.
It's one of those things. Right. Well, let's squeeze a couple more in. So, what have you got next?
But this is another record that I got on the dig, and it's one of those things I don't remember. There's, I think, mid-90s, round about the Britpop stuff. There's lots of this sort of library music coming out.
Right.
The Sound Gallery comps came out.
Not one I remember. No.
Okay, well, it's Kaminsky brothers were involved. Paul Tunkin was involved, and all that sort of KPM stuff. And one of the records on that was by a band called Mandingo. And Mandingo were a false band. They were billed as coming from New Zealand.
Okay.
But they weren't from New Zealand. It was Jeff Love, who ended up doing. He used to do the orchestration for things like Des O'Connor and stuff like that, and Max Bygraves and all that kind of really
it's interesting,
cheesy stuff. But he had this little band called Mandingo, and one of the records was called Black Right, which is a cover of the Led Zeppelin song.
Right.
And I was in a Billericay in Essex record shop, just going through all their mountains of 45s, and I found it on the 7 for £1.
Wow.
And so it's again out digging. Is one of my all-time favourite digs. I'll put it in, shall I? That's better.
Put it on the record.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's I found the album about 7 years ago and bought that, but to find it on a 7 was just like, I mean, so I think Lee put in the room. Scotty put. I didn't know this was on the 7th. Well, I didn't until I found it. It's like, and you can get it if you look on Discogs. You get it, and it's not expensive.
Double P's off to Discogs already.
Yeah, it's just it's on EMI. It's on EMI. There you go. It's EMI 2014 if you want the matrix.
Everyone got your pens out. EMI
EMI 2014. Black.
I'll get that. I'll get that off you after the show.
Played by Mandingo. It's one of those records that is just whenever you play it out, and I played it out, people, it's one of those. What's that? Because it's just a.
It's great. Score. Oh, it's gone up a little bit. It's definitely not £1.
Okay. Well, what's it going on? What's it going for?
It's going for a score, apparently.
Really? Blimey.
Yeah.
I've got a good deal. It just literally cost me £1. Yeah.
It just depends where you are as well, doesn't it? Certain shops. I was in a shop in, I think, Beckenham the other day. I was over sort of Bromley way and wanted music, and he had tons, and he was really well organised, like big boxes of 45s in different genres and stuff. And I was like, this is brilliant, but I can't come regularly. You're on Discogs. He's like, no, I'm not. I just do it on, just in the shop, which is great because then you have to go to the shop. And then, some of the stuff I found, I was like, brilliant, just stuff that, I wouldn't have even found if I hadn't been digging around in the shop, Yeah, 20's all right. Yeah, I think 20's all right.
It's it's the way some of the records have gone up. I mean, I've got a couple of Northern Soul things I think I mentioned before. I've got a record by Lynch Jones called I Just Can't Live My Life Without You, Babe. And I bought that 30 odd years ago. Maybe more. Probably about 88.
Okay.
That. For if I paid £2 for it, I paid a lot for it. It's one like just a guy I know, he had lots of Northern Soul, and all these things are cheap. And that goes for over a ton.
Yeah.
I've got a Marty Joseph record as well that goes for over a ton that I paid £2 for. But then they weren't expensive, Yeah. But that's £100 for a Northern Soul record. It's peanuts, isn't it?
It is. And
somebody's got to spend £3,000 on a record. I mean, I had one of the guys who came into our show once. He had a record. I can't remember who it's by now, but he gave me this record. And he said, "Oh, I'll put it on." As I was dropping it in, he goes, "Oh, that's worth £3,000. £3,000 that record." Oh, Jesus Christ! £3,000 for 7.
You're not gonna. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't know if I'd play if I had a £3,000 record. No. I don't know if I'd play it. It'd probably be framed somewhere. It'll be handed down. It's as easy to, for a university or something.
So I'll never spend that money on a record. Never spend £100 on a record. But if I've got one, but I still play it. It doesn't stop me from playing it. I've played it in several sets in the past, and it's because it's just a great record.
Yeah, exactly. Right, I think you've got maybe 2 more.
Yeah, I've got a couple more. Yeah.
2 more. Let's do your penultimate one.
My penultimate one.
We'll then talk a little bit about 45-day live stream, and then we'll do the last one.
Yeah. When I got back into vinyl, so about 8 years ago, the label that really resonated with me at the time was Jazzman.
Interesting. Jazzman dropped his 45-day mix
today.
I saw and it's brilliant. It is brilliant.
Yeah, I've not listened to it yet, but I will be listening to it.
And it's really good.
But and I've not got all of them, but I've got 80% of those, that Jazzman label. I bought lots and lots and lots, and I actually met them at a record fair up in London one day. And he said, "Who are you?" And so I bought some records. He said, "I said, oh, my name. My Marmite Boy was my tag." He goes, "God, you buy a lot of stuff from us." And he gave me a £5 discount, which is fair enough, whatever. Which is quite nice of him. So I bought some more stuff. But anyway, this is a Jazzman release. And it also happens to be my favourite singer of all time, which is Mark Murphy. And this is Why Don't You Do Right?
You let other people make a fool out of you. Why don't you do right? Like some other people do. Oh, yeah, give me some money too. want to do right, like some other chicks do. Whoa, yeah, that's what I want to do. Now, if you had prepared 10 years ago, we would not be your one no, why don't you do right, like some other chicks do.
That is brilliant. And
all the things I like.
yeah, as Lee says, you know, all of Jazzman's records are amazing.
Oh, they're great.
And all sort of little sub labels as well.
Yeah,
and I think wasn't it
is great, and the Friars and Soul Spectrum, and all those, they're all really, really good.
Yeah, and wasn't Ewan from Athens of the North part of, I think, Jazzman originally, and then I think he went off and did his own thing.
That's another amazing label.
That's another good label. Yeah, I remember you telling me about the sale. You bought a lot of that sale.
That weekend, poor old Ewan, who suddenly hit. He's then he's got quite a little sale on the Bandcamp, and I bought 11, I think, and then everyone else did about the same as me, and we had hundreds of people.
I mean, it's worth doing. I mean, the other one that does it has done a couple is Neil Anderson, Original Gravity, whose mix is also brilliant for 45 Day. He's done a label shaker. He did one last year for Original Gravity, and he's done again another label. But again, the output they put out, it just puts out so much music. It's amazing.
I think all the people around the moment, Neil Anderson, I mean, the man is a genius. The fact that he puts all those records out and it's all him.
I know. Well, that's the thing.
Like he put that EP that came out. It's got a sort of ska and an R&B, sort of a salsa thing, and something else, and it's all him. Oh, and the Sister Sissar one is all the Peter Gunn EP.
Oh, that's one of my favourites. I play that a lot.
Amazing. And then you think, you're looking at all these bands on. Oh, it's all Neil Anderson. Okay.
Well, it's only really when I did an interview for him for 45 Day, and then I was asking about it, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, and then this is how we do it, and this is what happens." And I was like, "Hold on, you put all this out, and you produce it, and you play all." I was like, "That's amazing, absolutely amazing."
Super talented, and they're all. But I think what's so good about it is it sounds like. I mean, you think, where'd you get this old record from? And that's what's so clever. That you think, well, that's an old record from he's found that he's dug that up from somewhere, but it's not. He's made it in Welling. Is it Welling Garden City? He's from or something, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Double P's picked up the Mandingo off Discogs.
Excellent, good man.
There you go. He's done the Discogs rush already. Right, let's have a quick talk about 45 Day live stream, and then we'll do your last track. So let me see if this works. So that's the logo for it. And then, look, there you are. Yourself and Ouija are kicking it off with Afternoon Delights, a sort of special for 45 Day. So, Ouija's kicking it off at 2, and then you're at 3:15. And then we've got Double P's in the chat. Nick Goodlife was in the chat earlier. Fat Wax as well. Lady Melza, Daddy Bounce, Will Mark Brand, Sideshow, Don Champ, Sam Tweaks. I mean,
that's not a bad lineup, is it?
That's not bad. That's just part one. And, I mean, it still blows my mind that I message people and they're like, I'll do it. And then we move into, so I'm launching 45 Day itself at midnight. So, and then we go into Tommy T, and then we've got a load of.
How many records is Tommy going to play in
I don't know. He's still threatening to do that.
He could do 500 in 45 minutes.
He's still threatening to do 200 in an hour. I think that's his, but he hasn't set a date.
44 and 15 minutes was a good laugh.
That was brilliant. Yeah, 45 Raiders.
I love Baby Funk. She's great.
Yeah, and we've got a load of other great Japanese DJs, Tsuki Raider, M-Rock DJ. We've got Decow in the middle of that as well, Black Candy, Uda Soul, and then we go to Canada, and then we go to LA. Fifi LaRue's coming on, J1's Son, and then we've got me again, sort of early morning on the 9 o'clock, and then we've got 45 Kings. We've got Funky Flavors, Mr. Lob, JS, DJ D, Buzz D's, Sam again, Les the DJ, Jazz Nasty, ZZ45 playing Sunday Get Down, Funky Chef, and then the last bit Andy Smith, and that's Andy and Nancy Smith.
Oh,
They're
fantastic.
doing a set together. Flip Out, and then we've got Dusty Donuts Special, Mark Hype, Naughty NMX, Jim Sharp, Robert Smith, Stino. And then I'm going to be a guest on one of my favorite shows, Wednesdays on Wax, which is going to be great. That's at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. And then we've got someone who I know you love, the Gaff. He's
I think the Gaff is all the people on Twitch is I just love watching him.
He's brilliant.
So infectious, and his record collection is just insane.
It's amazing. And then I'll be sort of finishing off 45 Day. And then Bus Crates, who's also amazing, and Morse Code. So amazing 36 hours of DJs.
Fantastic.
Maybe next year we might do 45 hours. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this year goes. I'm going to try and get some sleep sometime. And yeah, I will remind Flip Out about the times. But thank you for being part of that. Thank you for being on 45 Day. Thank you for coming on this show. Thank you for coming on part of my journey. You know, thank you for all the support, and thank you to everyone who's supported 45 Day and 45 Kings and 45 Queens and Kids and everything like that. But let's finish the show with your last track. What have you got?
Well, this is a record. It's only recently come out on 45. I think about 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years ago. Although it's quite an old record. Guy called Leroy Hudson, who great soul singer. To be honest, I knew nothing about him until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
Subsequently found out that he was a roommate of Danny Hathaway. He co-wrote The Ghetto.
That's great.
Made loads and loads of albums, which I've subsequently bought. Acid Jazz have been putting them all out. Fantastic singer. Should have been as big as Marvin Gaye, in my opinion, but wasn't for some reason. He just never made it. He's one of those guys, made lots of records, slipped through the net, no one knows who he is. So this is Leroy Hudson. This is called Positive Forces.
As Fat Wax says, that's a beautiful record.
There's actually quite interestingly, there's I've been trying to find out and I've not found out yet, but there's a version by Tavares.
Okay, right.
That I've actually got as well of Positive Forces, which actually came out, I know, in the late 70s. And I don't know whether that was first or whether Leroy Hudson's first. I've never been able to quite work out which one's the cover. But the Tavares version is worth looking out as well, because it's the B-side, but if you put it in Discogs, you'll find it. And it's not, again, a cheap record, but it's equally as good. But that is, that's my thing. That kind of rare groove, soul, sweet soul.
Yeah.
And I could listen to it all day.
Lee's saying he was the Impressions lead singer, wasn't he?
I think he was actually. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in fact, he wrote The Ghetto. So if you write The Ghetto, then you're quite good, aren't you? Really?
Well, yeah, definitely.
But check out his albums, because his albums are his first 3 albums are amazing.
That's brilliant. Really brilliant. Well, I'm just going to set the raid, and then we'll say goodbye. We'll go and see. Is that working? I can't see if that's working actually or not. I can't see it. Can someone tell me if that raid's working?
I've got nothing on my screen here.
Let me try again.
Thanks everyone for all your comments, by the way. It's been good to see you in. Thanks very much for tuning in. It cost some of you some money as well.
It cost a whole piece of money, and I'm sure some other people buy some. Right, the raid's working. That's great. We're gonna go and see Chris Wheatley as well. So that's cool. So keep the vinyl going. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Good fun.
Thank you for your 45-day mix. Thank you for being on part of my journey. Thank you for all the support and amazing selection. Really great stories, great insight into some of the records and what you do. It's brilliant. And so next up is I might jump on before that, but otherwise Coffee and Donuts on Saturday. I need to do the flyer, but myself and Fatworks are going to be joined by Enzo Pietanza and Vito Kiedemann from Italy.
Right,
so they're going to do 2 hours, so that's going to be a great show. And then I don't think there's anything on Sunday, and then we're back on Monday for the pre-45-day warm-up, which is 45 Funksters. So Sideshow Me and a couple of great guests. I think it might be Sideshow's first set since the little baby Liam has arrived. So I think he's still going to do it. and he's going to do 45 days as well. So we'll see. Excellent. But anyway, thank you for tuning in, guys. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing all of you very soon on the stream. And thank you to those of you who are playing on 45-day live stream. And if you haven't done a mix yet, you've still got a few days. Get it in. There's lots of great mixes. Let's be part of this. But yeah, thanks so much, Mark. Take it easy.
Okay.